This is KRFF 95.9 LPFM. This is the F5 Recovery Radio. Super happy to be here this fantastic Wednesday. I'm joined with my co-host, Kirsten Huvenen. This is your host, One Pretty Ricky. Adam Martin is out in Bismarck today, so he's not joining us.
He's on a little road trip.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun that we were in like our little group chat. We're like, we're going to say all sorts of really bad things about him, and he can't do anything about it. So
That's
it's kind of
true
great.
Story. Yeah, I know.
And I didn't tell him the phone number to like call in, so he can't even call in, which is pretty great. So yeah, which is awesome. So I want to thank you all so much for being here. It's just truly been an honor. I think this is our first, I think it's 2 months, about six weeks, give or take, which is great. I was looking up, like we've been doing this show.
This has been really fun. I mean, I'm sure way more for me, for anybody listening, our 5 followers or whatever, but I've had a lot of fun. It really gets you thinking about all the different aspects of recovery, and it's just been cool to get to know you, and I've known Adam, and if you know Adam, you love him, and if you really know him, you're probably a felon or should be, or whatever. But so what was your plan for the day?
Yeah, so today, for those who, have never heard this show before, we try to pick a just different topic, and obviously it's in our title, Recovery Radio. We always try to find different various topics about recovery and about various things, so we're super, this one's going to be a little interesting one, kind of just switching up a little bit for just Kirsten and I, and Kirsten, excuse me, I'm going to get that right one day. Or maybe we should just give you like a DJ name, and then I won't forget that one.
That's okay.
So today's topic, we wanted to talk about basically kind of the concept of managing cravings. And I think when I kind of mentioned that topic, you said kind of like staying in the middle of your recovery. I've never heard of anything like that either. So we're going to dive into that one too. So yeah. So like, I guess let's start with that. Like, what is, you said, staying in the middle of your recovery. What does that look like?
Well, I think when I think about being in the middle of your recovery, it's like I'm a visual learner, but if you imagine you're at a wedding reception, which you can easily imagine because you're at many wedding receptions.
Yep.
But if it's for my dad's side of the family, there's a ridiculous amount of people there because they're good Catholics and they made a lot of each other. And but if you imagine your recovery as like a wedding reception, and if I walk in and I just sit along the edge and I don't really get to know anybody or do the awkward dance or, do the chicken dance, all that stuff, if I don't participate, it's really easy for me to just leave the room and nobody will really even notice. And then that's probably something I'll get sensitive about, and it'll be another excuse for why, nobody really got to know me, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But if I'm seated in the middle of that reception, if I even have to go to the bathroom, I have to bump into 30 different people that want to have small talk and get to know you and happy this and whatever. And it's just way more difficult to leave.
Right.
Once you make those connections with people, it's way harder to leave. And a lot of times when you first come to recovery, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be.
Right.
It will be uncomfortable. Just accept that. You're going to want to run, and you have so many reasons why not to stay. And it's funny because we get to this place where we're completely desperate and we want a different life so badly. But the first thing we get back once we get sober a little bit is our opinion. And that kills me because I have 100 reasons why I'm not going to stay here. And why, they mentioned the word God. You know what I mean? But I swear, if my dealer was like, we're going to say a prayer before we do these drugs, I would be on my knees in a second. You know what I mean? It'd be like, yes, we are going to say this. But when it comes to recovery, all of a sudden the rules are different. And we have I've heard many, many times, I don't do well with crowds. I have social anxiety. I'm an introvert, and those are great things to know about yourself. Know those things about yourself. I'm not saying that they're not legitimate. They absolutely are. But they're just something I know this about myself. Now I need to have coping skills to better deal with this when I am in a social situation, because I don't want to die, And I know that sounds super dramatic, but that really is the ending for people like us. We either, they say jails, institutions, or death. And in the last little while, too many people my age are not living through this, And it's really sad that, like, it was right there. You know what I mean? It was right there. Like, your happiness, it was right there. But we have a lot of different reasons for why we can't be in the middle of your recovery. And I think it's just, are you willing to be uncomfortable to get better?
Yeah. And I think I like that you use that analogy, because I think, especially early on, not even early on, like, I mean, I was probably maybe a year and a half in. I had just finished. I had done like several different treatment programs, but I was still kind of doing I had graduated from my main treatment program that I was kind of doing. But I remember a lot of the situations when I had to get back out and go to weddings and go to events and do things, because I was private, because I was like, my life had already been public enough. I didn't want any more. I didn't, the people who needed to know were going to know, and that was it. And so then when I was like trying to like get my life back, if you will, or like what life would look like in recovery, and I remember going to events, and I would use, there's going to be 2 people. They might be connected to my former employer. They might, there was always a reason why I couldn't, not even sit in the middle.
Right.
I wouldn't even go.
Right.
And so there was always kind of like that was my way of like making sure I couldn't go, because I had to have like a good list of excuses.
Yeah.
For no one in particular, because my wife didn't care, and my friends were like, okay, that's cool, like I don't want to go, okay. And I was just like playing all these things in my head of like all these scenarios. I gotta like come up with these excuses of why I can't. And they were like, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't have to like make this as big of a deal as it was, because I was afraid that somehow being in the middle, I was using it as, this is going to trigger me. This will cause me to like go back out and be like, yep, see, this is exactly why. And then to use these people, use the 30 people that you bump into to be the reason for why I go back out.
Yeah.
And it was such a wrong way to think about it, but that's how I thought. And I was certain, you know?
It's almost an illness that tells you don't have it. Like, over my career, I feel like I spend a lot of time convincing people to go get better. Like, you came to me desperate, and now I'm trying to almost trick you into going to a meeting, But you had a very public, like, ending to your addiction, and like, I just didn't have that public of an ending. I wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, like, being topless on the Sinclair dinosaur is not an amazing ending to a drinking career, but. So what was the backlash from that? Like, did you get a whole bunch of like, what the heck, Ricky? You know what I mean? What are you doing? I didn't even know this about you. Yeah,
a lot of that. And it was weird, because like a lot of people, it was one of those things that I kept so private. And we've talked about this before on the show, of just like when I was drinking and using and doing other things like that, physical change, but like with gambling, it's such a mental change that, it was really, really easy to hide, which is why it kind of really took me out, if you will. And so I think when people found out, and when they realized that this is what it was, and I started to get a little bit more comfortable, and really I think it really came when I had a conversation with Adam, and just had to like be upfront with somebody who's also in recovery, to be able to say, hey, this is my thing and what I'm going through. It was kind of this understanding of like, okay, this is me being honest, this is me being transparent. And then almost for me, it was like reclaiming the power from my story, because I felt like I lost so much. I lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of people. And so then it's like, okay, I got to reclaim this back. And the only way to do that, and he really helped me understand that, he's like, is you just got to just own it. And I was like, well, I have been owning it. If the 750 hours community service, all the money I had to pay back. So I was like, I've been working 3 jobs to try, like, it's like, what do you mean I have to own it?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, like, you have to own your story. You have to own, your addiction and what you were doing, but you have to own your recovery. You have to own all the things that you're doing, not just the court-ordered stuff, but the things that you're doing to keep your life in order, the people that you're connected with, and, working here and volunteering, all these other different things. And it was like, okay, And at that point, then it was like, okay, it like helped me be more mindful, or not mindful. It helped me like rethink how I was thinking about those 30 people I'd bump into.
Yeah.
Because it was so much about them, or in my mind, I was so concerned and worried about them, but I really just needed to be concerned and worried about me and the people who were connected or still stayed connected with me and who still loved me and supported me. And when my friends were like, yeah, that's cool. And my wife was like, yep, that's fine. All the people like who just said, yeah, that's fine. I didn't have to explain anything or do anything. I knew that those were the folks that I needed to like stay connected to.
And when you say that you had like friends, a lot of people left your side, was that because you took their money, or was that because they just were worried for you and they couldn't be around it anymore? Why do you think that?
Some people were because they thought I took their money.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
Yeah, ditto. I save, right?
Yeah. Yep. But others were just, you know, either sided with, you know, the former company or just, you know, were just so appalled about my decisions and that I could do that. And like this guy, all sorts of things were like thrown back in my face. Like, oh, you're supposed to be a Christian. Oh, you're supposed to, you're supposed to be this really nice guy and you're always hugging people and doing all these things. Yeah. Somehow all my personality traits became toxic. Like all the things that truly were genuine about me. Like, yes, I had a problem, but me loving the way I love, me like caring for people and doing a lot of the different things, even in my addiction, shouldn't be things that were like harmful.
Right.
But they made it harmful. They made it like to be like knives and try to stab me with it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Go for it. If that's going to help you feel better, or you to justify or whatever it is that you need to do, that's fine.
Like I didn't realize you had this imaginary bar for me to attain.
Yep.
And, you know, it does start to feel like the unconditional love suddenly becomes very conditional.
Right.
Or, it's hard to have all of this shame coming into recovery and know that it's put back in your face as like, and that's why I think, you know, often this is probably way off the topic, but often I've been asked to do interventions for people. I will not do it. Ooh. I will not do an intervention. I think that show wrecked a lot of like ideas on how recovery should work. I don't think that sitting in a room with people that love you unconditionally, that suddenly put conditions on their love for you has anything to do with the addict. I think that by saying like, if you continue to be sick, you are not welcome in our home anymore.
Right.
Like that is so counterproductive. I will absolutely sit with the person who needs the help and I will sit with the family, but I'm not going to sit in like this shame environment and berate someone into being better, because it's not like they don't already know. Right. You know what? They already know all of these things. They know they're a disappointment. They know they're breaking your heart. They know all of these things. And like you said, like they're still a good person. They really are. In every other facet, I'm sure that they're giving and kind, and they feel deeply, you know, and it's just like this illness turns you into somebody you're not. It makes it really hard for me to show the world that like I am a nice person. It's just really hard to explain from county jail that like I'm I'm a good person. But to sit and you know, throw that back at them like they already know. Right. They know they're in trouble. They know all of these things. It's more about the family and the people with the concerns being emotionally unhealthy, you know, and saying that like, it'd be like if I told my kids, you make me so mad, you know what I mean? Like, you make me so mad, whatever. That's just telling them that I don't control my emotions, you do. And you're never going to be able to control your emotions. You will always be a victim of circumstance. Poor you, you know what I'm saying? And actually today when I was thinking about, we were initially going to do anger management, and then we realized that Adam's probably the angriest, so we'll wait for him. No, I'm kidding. But it was just like this, a lot of anger, especially for women, comes out with like, it's going to come out. So it's either going to come out in an explosive way, or typically what I see or what I'm the best at is leaking it out in little knives and cutting remarks and pouting and I want to punish somebody slowly. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't really want to I'm not going to blow up because that appears immature,
Yep.
but I am going to give you the silent treatment. And then my husband will say, "What's wrong?" And I'll say, "Nothing."
Yep.
And then I'll do that till about right before he falls asleep. And then I'm like, "Matt, okay, remember, actually you hurt my feelings." You know what I mean? But it's just like that lack of emotional, like handling your own emotions is such a big part of helping other people.
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nothing is real personal.
Right.
But so now your family, how do they feel about you being in recovery?
Yeah. I think now it's funny, my mom and my sister especially, they don't really, every once in a while they'll kind of bring it up, they'll talk about it, but they don't, really try to bring up the things. My mom, the other day, so they were in town visiting because my son was getting baptized and or dedicated, I don't know, whatever the proper term is. And so they were in town, so my mom was like, "Hey, so how are things?" And I hadn't talked, I talked to my mom often, but I hadn't talked to her about me like that and some time. And so she was like, "How are things?" And I was like, "Actually really, really good." It's things have been kind of up in the air since, obviously having the baby and still trying to figure out my own kind of journey. But it was a really cool, update because we hadn't, talked for a couple of months about it. It was cool to be able to say, "Hey, Mom, this is where I'm at now compared to where I was." And, a couple of months ago, I was not doing really, really good. And so she was trying to help, and it just, wasn't helping because she was really good. I love my mom, and I love that she tries to help, but sometimes the help she can offer isn't, I don't need her to help. I don't need her to fix it. It's Ma, I just want you to tell you this. This is something I would technically talk to my sponsor about, or this is what I would talk about in my rooms, but I want you to know because I want you to know this side of me too, and not always just the life things, the finances, or just the mom son things. And so she was trying to help. I was like, "Mom, no, Mom, that's not this." And so at that point, I just wasn't really good. So then to be able to tell her now, Mom, I'm doing really good. I've been going to a lot more meetings. I've started this, and I told about the show, and I'm so I'm doing a lot more to support my recovery in that. And so it was just a really cool being able to when you don't talk about it often with people you care about and who are very much invested in your recovery, but to be able to share positive things and the negative things, I think it just really adds another layer of connection in a way that I never, thought that we could have. And she was really supportive and again, trying to help more. I was like, "No, Mom, again, I don't you've done so much to get me to this point."
Yeah.
And so the help that I needed then to not take my life and to find, the clubhouse and all the steps that when I first started was all credit to her.
Yeah.
But now it's "Okay, Ma, you just put the cart in motion. I needed to do the rest of the pushing."
Right. Yeah.
I need to continue to work my way down the tracks and figure out how to do this now because she doesn't have a recovery journey. Doesn't obviously it has some effect, family and other people in her life that do, but it's still different when you're trying to connect with somebody who doesn't necessarily know exactly what you're going through. May not necessarily be the same drug, but they know exactly kind of that
it's
experience.
It's the same though in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was happening a few months ago? Can you share about that or?
Yeah,
I just figured if you brought it up, I'm going to dig. Yeah,
for sure. So a few months ago, this was kind of the, I think just the stress of Jelsa's, so the first trimester was rough.
Yeah.
Again, I'm saying this from a male's perspective.
Oh, I get
having very little to do with anything, but just my perception. First trimester was rough. Second trimester was okay, cool, back to normal, quote unquote, trying to do the things. And the third trimester is oh shoot, this is real. It was already real.
For real.
But she had her first, her stomach got tight, the first Braxton Hicks. And so all these things are just this heaviness of oh my God, the baby's coming. It's not, but it did. And I just started nesting and I just all the things, I just got so like the world is on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I have to do this. I can't share this with anyone.
Right.
And so when I was going to my meetings and like, I was just having just terrible meetings with my sponsor because I wasn't really like, you kind of just dance around things without really tackling it. And so I'm just carrying this burden of like, this baby's going to come. I'm about to be a dad. What the heck am I about? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what am I supposed to do between now and whenever they decide to come?
Yeah.
Like, not feeling good at all. And what I normally do in those situations is talk to my sponsor or I, like take it to a meeting and, trying to do the things. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure this out on my own somehow. Like, in my mind, that made a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It was like, yep, I'm going to figure this out on my own. I got this. I've gotten this far, like I can do this. So I stopped going to meetings, stopped talking to my sponsor because I was just like, I'm just really not getting anything.
Yeah.
Because I'm not giving
I know
anything.
It all. Yep.
So it's like, okay, I really want to like, and then, which was really, really bad, and I had to make some amends, is that I was like, okay, I'm just really going to focus on my family now. I'm really going to just be more present, stay at home, kind of just be more helpful, which again I legit was, but I think we talked either last week or the week before of just like putting your recovery first. I wasn't doing that. I was just using my family as my crutch. And so then I was just in such a just miserable point. So my mom just happened to call out of the blue, like, hey, just checking on you. So then I just unload like all these things. And then she's like, you sure you're okay? I'm like, no, I promise I am. I just need to this is the first time I'm actually saying a lot of things out loud of how I'm feeling. And I think she freaked out. I don't know if she did or not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. Yep.
But she's like, all right, well, my addict son is like saying a whole lot of things that aren't really good. Like, all right, let's just pray. So, which is, I love my mom and bless her. Like, that's always, the response. And it was helpful. So we prayed, got a little piece of some semblance and talked to Jels about it. And she was like, you should really, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I think once I said what I needed and just hearing that she was okay, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, right. Yeah. She's an adult. She can figure this out. Like, she's a wonderful superhuman who can figure out her life. And if she needs something, she will tell me.
That's nice.
That's nice. I don't have to guess. So I was like, okay. And then I went back to meetings again. I was like, hey, guys, remember me?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And then.
Was that humbling?
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely was.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did the same thing. And I don't know how, I'd been sober maybe 15 years or something. And my best friend that I'd had forever, she decided to not come to meetings anymore. And that's fine. I absolutely still love her. But we had small kids. And on a side note, the first trimester, every time I was pregnant, the first trimester, I wanted a divorce. It was just like, I don't know why. I don't know everything he did. He breathed and I'd hate him. I mean, it was just like, and then it was like a light switch. The second the first trimester was over, it was like, oh my gosh, that was really weird. Sorry. You know what I mean? Whoopsie. But there's something about sharing blood with a boy in your body or something. And Matt would go out of town for work and I'd take a wall out and he'd come back and just be like, what the heck? Like, well, I just wanted more light in here. I watched MMA every night before I went to sleep. I hate fighting, but it was just like I just needed to watch some guys get bloodied up and then I would shut it off and go to sleep and Matt would be all amped up like, you know. But anyway, I think after you have kids, it's like there's a lot of fear involved, but your identity is different now. Like now I'm a mom and I know I'm not the woman you married because everything physically is different. This kid needs me. Anyway, I just was like, I was busy with a career and as a mom, you kind of give up some of that stuff. Like, it's hard not to be resentful. It's like, I gave up my career and blah, blah, blah. But all of that stuff is put on pause. It's never gone. But I think that just like you, I thought, I got this. I got this. And what the frightening part is that the more I think about my problems, the worse they get and the more sensitive I get. And I take everything personal all of a sudden and I make assumptions and I just make my life really dark. And AA like recovery, that's the first thing to go because it's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I've been around a long time. I know what I'm supposed to do. I get it.
Yeah.
And I think to hit that emotional bottom, so to speak, whatever that is even, is like way more humbling than it was to like bottom out the first time almost even. Because that time there was wreckage. There's like, look, I got all of this stuff. There's obviously a reason why I have to get into recovery. And now this is of my own making. And I knew better and I didn't do better. And to go back was super humbling, you know?
Right.
And when you were talking about your mom asking you how you're doing, it made me wonder, like, why is it difficult to ask people in recovery how they're doing? Like, as a loved one, nobody wants to say, hey, how's it going with, like, not slamming dope and stuff, you know? Like, you know, because they think if I ask, they're going to go off the rails and whatever. But anyway, there's a lot of emotional things that are involved in recovery. And just like we started with, staying in the middle is such a big deal. But
right. Well, I want to shout out to, what up, Corey? Good to see you. My Uncle John, love you, man. And looks like Adam's tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Well, we should take a pause and kind of shout out to some special underwriters. Ooh, look at that. Flatland Guitar underwrited our programming on KRFF, LPFM, Radio Free Fargo. So we want to shout out Flatland Guitar in Lutherie. Flatland Guitar is your full-service guitar shop and your exclusive dealer for Yamaha, Taylor, Paul Reed Smith guitars, and other brands. They sell guitars on consignment, they take trade-ins, and have full-service on-site repair. Check out Flatland Guitar in Lutherie on Facebook, or you can visit them in person at 1450 25th Street South in Fargo. Hours are Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturdays, 10 to 5, and for Adam, closed on Sundays.
Aww.
I know, he's not here. I hope you hear that, Adam. They're closed on Sundays.
Yeah.
Oh, love you, Amanda. Yeah, so it's super awesome. But so back to your question of like asking people, you know, like, hey, how's it going? I think one of the things that I really had to kind of come to terms with is one, just my sponsor was great. It was like, hey, like if for whatever reason that question like triggers somebody or like pushes them out, that's not your fault. Like,
no,
you know, you're not responsible for their response to your question. But I think the other thing, I think I've like really had to like kind of understand and why I'm still, even with, you know, participants and clients and other people in recovery and just, you know, in the rooms, sometimes I'm nervous of asking because I'm afraid of what I'll have to do with that answer.
Oh, yeah.
So if they say,
that's a good answer.
Hey, I'm doing great. Cool. I'm like, whew, big sigh of relief. Like, oh, right, great. I don't have, you know what I mean? Like just that kind of response. And then if they are like, you know, I'm glad you asked. And then as soon as they say that, then I was like, oh, okay. Well,
settle in.
Where's my chair? Let me, hold that thought. Let me grab a cup of coffee, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think, sometimes I think that's at least for me, like my apprehension of like asking like, hey, Kirsten, how's things going?
Yeah.
Is I don't know what your response is going to be. And then do I do something with it? Do I, make a suggestion? Hey, have you talked to, like, do I give you a canned, hey, have you talked to your sponsor?
Right.
Or is it like all right, let's dive into this. Let's really get into it and figure this out.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
it is. And I think a lot of times for men, like especially for my husband, he wants to fix it. I don't know what's going on, but he wants to fix it. And my girlfriends are like the ride or dies, like, he made you mad, let's go burn his stuff. And you know what I mean? But then the next day when I'm not mad, they're like, yeah, he's cool, we like him. And the sponsor's like well, maybe we could look at your behavior. A lot of times I'm not ready to do that. But I love the drama of things. I love when people are, I think, and if I hear that somebody's fine more than twice, then it's not fine. You know what I mean? There's something happening because this is such a messy journey that there is no way that everything is fine, you know? And sometimes they say fine because they just don't want to share with me, and that's totally cool. But a lot of times it's too humbling to admit that, like, I am the problem,
Right.
which is actually the best news, because that means I'm not the victim of somebody else's behavior, which I was really good at. Like, oh, well, if they hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have blah, blah, blah. But I'm the problem. So then I can fix it. But I like when I say, how are you doing? They're like, well, it's crap. You know what I mean? This is happening and this is happening, because it's supposed to be a mess. It's supposed to be an emotional upheaval. If it was super easy, everybody would do it. Everybody that went to detox would come out a winner,
Yep.
But so it always makes me nervous when someone is like, oh, everything is fine. And I thought that's how you were just supposed to be in life. Just act like everything's fine. Don't bother people. and for acquaintances, that is probably polite.
Sure.
You don't want to be at the bank and the teller says, how you doing? You're like, well, actually, my husband, you know what I mean? You just want to say fine and move on. Right. But you have trusted people in your life, hopefully. And my husband he does give me good advice sometimes, which we don't need to mention to him. But anyway, one morning I was just irritated. I was irritated, like with, I don't know, life. Everything made me mad. I was on my way to work and everything was bugging me. And my husband, and I was stomping around like the mature adult I am, pouting and stomping around and just waiting for somebody to be like, oh, poor you have it so hard. But I don't. And my husband was in the shower and he was getting out and he had his little towel on and he comes to the door and he's like, as I was leaving, I was just going to slam the door shut. He goes, hey. I was like, what? Crabby's a choice. I was like, so is homicide. And I slammed the door shut. No. But then when I got to the car, I sat there for a minute. I thought, oh my gosh, he's absolutely right. Like, I can pick to do this day with gratitude, or I can pick to start this day in like the poor me, I have it so hard, I have to go to work like actually 40 hours a week, which I should get a reward for every week. And, just like, I don't know, it was just one of those moments where you think that was absolutely eye-opening,
Right.
So... Yeah. But like you said, without going through that stuff myself, having somebody fix it for me, I don't need that.
Right.
I, just like with my kids, I wish them enough uncomfortability to be humble.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to watch your kids struggle through anything. You want to fix it.
Right.
If, my youngest son, Charlie, he's obviously the tallest in his class and he has dyslexia. And so one day, this broke my heart. He came home and he's like, I don't want to be the biggest and the dumbest. And I thought, who called you dumb? Yeah. I'm going to murder a 10-year-old. Yep. You know what I mean? But but my job is not that. My job is to be the person he can come tell that to and help him navigate all these big emotions. Right. And it's been really cool. For whatever reason, I don't know how Matt and I mixing our DNA made good kids, but they're good kids, and they talk to us about what's going on. They talk to us about like their friends using marijuana or all these things that I wouldn't have told my mother that ever, because it would have been like, well, you're never leaving the house again. Right. Or like every time I'd come home and be like, did you do the marijuana? I did try and talk my mom into smoking marijuana with me, because I was just like, Mom, it will chill you out. You will really like it. Like, it will be so fun. We'll be bonded. And she didn't. Just for the record, she never did, because it's against the rules. Anyway. Oh, that's awesome. But typically the solutions I pick for my life create more problems. And so that having that, when I got so sad in my recovery, I've never been suicidal in my life. And like 15 years into my recovery, I was actually, it was kind of like a peace. Like, I'm going to just do my family a favor. You know what I mean? Then Matt can get a wife that's more fun, and my kids can have a mom that doesn't nitpick about stuff, and it'll just be easier for everybody. And that scared the crap out of me. And also, my husband suggested that either I go back to meetings or he's going to commit me. So I thought, well, that would be humiliating. So I'll go back to meetings. And that was so humbling. It was like being new again and just being raw. And I had to take my own advice and be uncomfortable in my own skin. And the more transparent I am, the better I get. Yeah. The closer friends I have, the more opportunities open. And who'd have ever thought that, like, if I'm actually honest about the person I was or the things I think, I will have more opportunities in life. Right. You know, typically it's like, we're going to seclude you to a padded room and you can just eat through this door, you know. But anyway, and it's okay to ask people how they're doing in recovery. Like you said, someone's reaction is not, well, it's none of your business, actually. You know what I mean? Like, you can ask and they can answer with whatever. Right. And typically, if it's not like I'm fine or whatever, then there's something going on there that is not your responsibility to fix. It's just to be there. And I'm sure when your wife is upset, you want to fix something immediately so that the complaining and pouting stops. That's what Matt wants. But I'm not going to let him off the hook that easy.
That's awesome. And if you're just tuning in, this is F5 Recovery Radio here on KRFF 95.9 LPFM. Here in Fargo-Moorhead. Today's topic is managing cravings. This is your host, One Pretty Ricky, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kirsten Huvenen, and Adam Martin is out today. He's online on Facebook, but he's out in Bismarck doing some amazing things, talking about legislation and other things. So I want to wish him the best as well as he's out there. And so I want to kind of circle back a little bit, Kirsten. You had mentioned and talking about like managing kind of your emotions and kind of just managing your, those traumas of things is, kind of one of the big pieces, of being able to like kind of manage those cravings. Do you see like managing cravings as the same thing as managing emotions? Because you can obviously, like, is there such thing as like, obviously there's positive emotions, but are there positive cravings? Is there positive things that you can put forth, do you think?
Well, I think I can make up an answer. No, I think that cravings are a part of this deal, know, and there's a difference between like physical withdrawal where maybe you should be medically detoxing or see a doctor about getting on, having a medication to help with the physical addiction part. But the rest of it is just all based on action. This isn't an illness like you can think your way out of. You're never going to know enough about it. You're never going to be, smart enough to figure out your addiction or whatever. It's my belief anyway. This is an illness that tells you don't have it. Right. One of the biggest symptoms of this illness is social anxiety and that uncomfortability. That is, you're supposed to feel all these things. If you quit and didn't have cravings, I would think you're probably in the wrong room. You know what I mean? Because they say there's a difference between just a heavy drinker and someone with alcoholism or addiction or whatever. Oh. And those are the ones with like if you had reason enough, if somebody said, hey, your liver's done, if there's a big enough reason, they can just quit. Okay. And pretty much be content with life. So
they would be the heavy drinker.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And then the person with the addiction or alcoholism, like this illness has very, very little to do with the gambling, with the drugs, with the alcohol. That is my medicine. That gave me this will be okay, Right. That was the relief that I was seeking. Mm-hmm. And so now you're newly sober. It's just like you're emotionally naked in the breeze. Right. Go get to know new people. Be happy. You know what I mean? That just doesn't happen. I think there's this illusion that if I get sober, everything gets better. And that's just not reality. Not the case. Yep. It's going to be difficult. And there's times well into your recovery where I'm sure you'll watch people drink or gamble, and with ease, they just seem to be able to do it, and nothing bad happens. Right. And so I start to trick myself. If I'm not in the middle of that reception, if I'm not in the middle of recovery, I start to get the idea that I'm probably like them. I mean, I probably overreacted with this whole getting sober thing.
Okay.
It was just a bad run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in actuality, that's just, I'm tricking myself, and that's in itself a craving, and that can happen. That could probably happen yesterday. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yep.
I am literally one bad day from the other side of this desk,
Right.
truthfully. And just to stay with that attitude that, like, this requires consistent care, like any long-term illness, whether it be diabetes or whatever, there is daily care that I have to take to just have to deal with this, to have it, to manage. There, and typically what the answer, the going to meetings, the connections, ends up being the highlight of my life.
Right.
I absolutely love it. And when I first got here, I knew that this was the lamest thing I was going to do in my life, because I was pretty, I thought of myself as pretty gangster, but turns out I wasn't in Jamestown, North Dakota. But anyway, I wanted to be the next Biggie or something. But anyway, so just like you said, managing cravings is about being transparent and just because people want to help. When they say, I'm going to give you my number, you call, they really mean that. It's
Right.
not weird to get a call from a total stranger that's like, I'm having a rough day. That's not a weird thing when you're in the recovery program, you know?
Right.
And I just think with anything in life, the more transparent you are, the more relatable you are. I think the people that I've seen in life that are like, I have it all together, and my house is always clean, and my kids are always wearing clean clothes, and I do things perfectly, they scare me. I have no
Yeah.
idea how to do that. I can barely keep a schedule together, you know? And but when people are honest and just like, I'm a train wreck that's just trying the best it can today, I dig them. I dig them. They're just real. But cravings can come up anytime. And another thing that I've heard over the years is, well, I'll just get some numbers, and then when I want to drink or do something dumb, I'll just call somebody. You will not do that. They're a stranger. You will not do that when
Right.
you need to.
Yeah.
You need to create that relationship. Call them when things are good.
Right.
And then you might call them when things are bad.
Yes.
And even if you like give in to cravings, you haven't failed. You're still in recovery. You're still
Right.
working towards the goal of having a good life. And don't beat yourself up. It's not, I think there was an old school idea that like, if you relapse, everything starts over
Right.
and you're back to the dumps. You know what I mean? But that's not true. Every day that you battle this is a day in recovery that you are learning more about yourself. And I only learn through failure for some reason.
Yeah.
I've never been like, oh, somebody suggested I should do this. That'd be a great idea. That's never crossed my mind. I'm like, no, I'm going to go burn it down myself, and then
Right.
we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But so what are the things triggering for gambling? I really don't know a whole lot about that. And it pains me to lose $20 even.
Yeah. I think one of my big, like probably the most recent, like biggest potential well, it was a craving. I was around the Super Bowl. And so when I was really, really active, like March Madness, Super Bowl, like Kentucky Derby, there was like events where like, okay, like I would gamble like not pretty consistently. I was definitely consistently gambling every day, but there were events or there was like seasons or whatever where it was like, okay, this is when I went really, really heavy because of this one-time event, whatever this thing is. And so especially like this year, I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. So the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and something I started, I think it was 3 years ago. Before I used to I would want to be out. I want to be with people. And so then, because it's either when my teams or my parlay or whatever I'm betting on is doing well, there's a bunch of people around to like celebrate and be like, all right, like this is going to be great. Then when they're not doing good, then I have people to be mad at. Like, I'm angry at other fans or just other like little things.
Angry at the fans?
Like other people who are cheering on the other team that I bet against.
Oh.
So if I'm betting against this other team, I don't want them to do good because then that's going to affect my money.
Right.
So now
okay.
I'm
So you
angry at
kind of
you.
take it personal if somebody likes
Somebody
a
else.
different team. Yeah. At
Even-
you.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
somehow like you know what you're doing? You're cheering on, like, this is gonna affect my pockets, and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And so I think 3 years ago, I kind of was like, all right, I'm not gonna go like any like big sporting events, whatever it is. I still liked. I didn't watch them for a long time, for probably about 2 years. My sponsor was like, nope, don't do it. I'm like, okay. And so then I was like, okay, well, can I? He was like, yeah. You know, if you feel like, if you really feel inclined, you feel like you can handle that, you know, okay, try it, and then call me, like call me on the hour. So I'm like, okay. So I remember I watched the like World Series. I was like, every hour I would just call just to check in and say, hey, I'm doing okay. Yeah. That's really what it was. It was like a 45-second conversation. I would call, and he was like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, yep, I'm doing okay. And then he would. And
you really were doing okay. Like it did make it manageable. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was that was a rough inning or rough period, whatever it was. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing okay. He's like, you want to talk? I'm like, no. He's like, okay. And so like he would just kind of just really kept it like that. But it was good because it helped like temper out like how I was doing, like riding that wave of things and having like someone I can just call and trust and like know that if I said, no, I'm not okay and I want to talk, he would just drop whatever he was doing and talk. And so, so kind of circling back again to this past like Super Bowl, just at my buddy Ryan's house. That's, you know, kind of just been my safe, safe space for, sports games to be able to watch sports and do different things. And so my wife was there, some of my other friends, and we kind of just had like just a small Super Bowl party, and obviously the highs and lows of football. But that night we had a women's jail meeting, or Cass County Jail. We do a once a month women's meeting. And so we had a meeting that night. And like that morning, I was like, everything in me was like, okay, what can I say to Adam to just get out of this? Or like, can you do it? You know, like even before the game started, just like trying to, and I was like, no. And I kept like, I had to say no to myself a lot that day because I was just, I don't know. It felt icky because like I didn't really want to do the meeting, but I didn't have a reason why I didn't want to do the meeting. And I did want to watch the game because it's the Super Bowl, but it's like, no, I don't. Like, there's nothing really that's justifying me not doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing for these women. But for me, being able to come in and be really, really humbled and see some people who were in some situations that I was in, to really kind of be able to kind of have that clarity. And so then I was like, no. And so then Adam texted me at like 7. The meeting's at 8. So he texted me at 7. He's like, hey, like, you still going? I'm like, yep. Like, I already planned on it. Got all my paperwork I needed. I bought cookies. We always bring cookies. Yeah. So I bought the cookies, and me and Brendan are going, and I got a few other people going. He was like, okay. He's like, and I told him, and I was like, you know what? Like, I was going to text you earlier today and cancel or just not go. And I was like, no, I need to go. Like, this is something. And like, so like halftime, like, missed all of that. But it was like, it was one of the best. And the 5 years I've been in recovery, that was one of the best decisions that I will always remember. Yeah. Not just staying and watching my team and cheering and not doing the triggering. It was like, okay, that was one of the best decisions I could have made for myself. Not even just, I mean, from the stories we shared, like the meeting itself was great, but I felt so good about myself that I didn't do what my first, I don't even know if it's my gambling mind or if it's just my like really selfish mind, whatever my first mind was, to be like, just it's a real quick text to just get out of something I don't want to do. Yeah. But that I just didn't do that. And I went and did this meeting, and it was just amazing. And then my team won. So I was like, oh, look at God. It's just blessing me because I did the right thing. Just somehow taking all this credit. God, it was just, and then I called my sponsor, and I was like, just super happy. And it was like, hey, how you feel? I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. My team won. Like, I went to this meeting, and then he humbled me real fast. So it was good. It was a really good, like, I'm trying to did the right thing. Things are good happening, and I'm trying to take credit. And he was like, okay, so we're going to not do that. Right. And so we brought me back down, and I was like, okay.
But that is a great example of being in the middle of your recovery. Mm-hmm. And there's not, whatever misconception I have about it, it's just interesting to see how, like, you emotionally wanted to feel better via this football game, which I don't even know who played, you know what I mean? But how it was like And truthfully, every Tuesday morning, my home group's on Tuesday nights, I wake up and I say, I'm not going. And then my mom yesterday said, isn't that what you say on that show? And I'm like, I don't need this. But I went great. And I went and I picked up other people. And I just think being of service is so gratifying. But there's never been that's why those connections are so important. Had you not had a connection with Adam or was it Brendan that you went with? Then had you not been knew them and emotionally connected with them, you would not have felt the guilt, which is a good thing to have in recovery, to go to that meeting, which is, that's why they say, live your way to better thinking. It works if you work it, not it works if you think about it. Because when I think about it, I'm out. You know what I mean? This is extra. I don't need it. I like being at home. I got to help my kids with homework, which I'm not doing well in 6th grade math. So, but I've never thought oh man, what was that worksheet I did in treatment? You know what I mean? That's never crossed my mind. Yeah. But those connections I make in those meetings do give me the motivation to get there, begrudgingly or whatever. But if I can get there, I leave happier every time. And just like you said, there's enough, if I can experience enough heartache to be humble, then I can go back. Or I need to make a commitment. That's why they say get a job in your home group. Because for whatever reason, I think I'd skip it, but who's going to put the coffee cups out? You know what I mean? Because I'm that big of a deal. Yep. and I do want special attention for doing normal things. I want a reward for oh, look at you. You went to work all week, or you know what I mean? Anyway.
Good pat on the back. We did a pat on the back Monday. So I was like, yeah, this is a pat on the back. You showed up today. Pat on the back.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty big deal. I could even watch you tell somebody else that, and I'd still be like, yeah, I'm a pretty big deal.
So with our 6 or 7 minutes, the kind of final question and thing that I wanted just to tackle before we get out of here. So we always try to just giving you something. If whatever we've shared, hopefully take what you need and leave the rest, if you will. But just kind of a final thing for those who, Kirsten, if you could, and I'll kind of share, what's some things that we can just share for those who are maybe listening or tuning in after the fact who are really struggling? Maybe they're having a day or a week or a month or a year where they're just not managing cravings and not doing well in that. What are some suggestions to kind of help them maybe get there?
Just, you're not alone. I think I could rattle off advice for days, but you've heard it all. You already know all of the things. You've heard all the suggestions. You've been shamed enough, all of that stuff. Yep. But just know that if you get you don't have to be sober to go to 12-step meetings. You don't have to not be gambling to go to GA. Yep. If you go there, I went to a lot of meetings and I was not sober, but I couldn't leave my house sober anymore. So it felt like not an option. But I went there, I just showed up. Just show up. And trust that the rest of things will work out if recovery is first. You will figure out all of the garbage from your past. Yep. You'll figure out all the current garbage you're sitting in. All of that will get worked out, but you got to show up or it will never start. Yep. And don't put any rules on yourself, or don't say oh, they're a cult or whatever, whatever your reason. Want to live enough to be uncomfortable. Yep. Be willing to be uncomfortable, and things will absolutely get better. Let people get to know you. Don't come at 8, leave at 9. That's a good start. Do that however long you want to do that, but eventually talk to people. Yep. But don't put any rules on it. You don't have to be sober to get there. You don't have to have your life together to get there, because nobody does. Right. And don't think well, if I go to meetings, they're going to know that I'm an addict or alcoholic. Oh, they know. Don't worry. Yes. You're you know what I mean? Don't let your ego keep you, kill you, really. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, just on my best or my worst best days, just it's always just all right, if I have no one to talk to, I mean, I always have at least for me, I always have someone to talk to, and hopefully you have somebody in your life that you can call, that you can text, Snapchat, whatever, however you need to reach out to someone, that you have somebody that you can just be a little bit transparent with and say, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And that you have somebody who won't, like, oh, okay, that at least be able to give you that. So if you're having just a tough day and the cravings are just kicking your butt and just overwhelming, just hopefully have somebody to call. And if you don't have somebody to call, there's a national line. It's called 988. You can just to speak to someone because, not everyone has an opportunity and has somebody in their life that they can speak to. And we've shared, sometimes it is a stranger. Obviously, you might not know the other person on the other line, but dial 988. I can't stress that enough. Like the 988 is just a brand new number that specifically, it's like 911, but it's basically those kind of emergency mental situations. And so at the very least, if you're at that point contemplating, unsure what you're going to do, whatever your next steps might be, just dial 988, speak to someone, and they can kind of help guide you and get you resources in your area. And that's a national line. So if you're listening locally, or if you're online and listening, anywhere else in the world, just anywhere else in the United States, just please use that number because we want you to live.
Yeah, for real.
We really want you to live, and sometimes it can seem so overwhelming, and that can just dialing 3 numbers and talk or call can feel like the hardest thing you have to do. But I promise, just making that 2 steps, 988, pushing talk or call, by far can really save your life and really help you get to that place where you can be stable and where you can find the things. Everything else will handle itself, as you shared. So
yeah.
So
yeah, and there's just so many good people out there, like safety wise, don't medically detox yourself,
yes.
All of these things. If you're not in a safe situation, there's rape and abuse. There's just like a lot of different things out there to help you. But for the most part, I have, in my 20 years of doing this, we lose most people in recovery at that hump between knowing they should go to a meeting and getting to the meeting. It's that physical movement to the meeting that most people don't come back from. And that's really frightening. And it's hard to watch sometimes because it's like on this side, it's like, it's so easy and we're so fun and we make inappropriate jokes and we're, you know what I mean? Yep. But, and sometimes it's easier to talk to a total stranger or at least somebody in the same sinking ship. I know that there's a lot of people in your life too that say, I love you. I want the best for you. And, they did that for years. And then I go to a meeting where there's some other boob who's like, yeah, I burned it down too, and blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I'm like, I want to change my life. You know what I mean? So you just don't know where the answer is going to come from, but it will come if you show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in to F5 Recovery Radio. This is your host, One Pretty Ricky, my co-host, Kirsten Huvenen, and Adam Martin is out today. Please tune in next week. We're going to be talking about anger management. This is 95.9 KRFF LP FM.